For natural language processing, we're going to rely on an additional Python package. We're going to rely on Spacy. Spacy builds itself as industrial strength natural languages processing. And we're not going to replace scikit-learn. In other words, we're not going to stop using scikit-learn. We're going to still use scikit-learn. Scikit-learn in general is going to give you tools for machine learning overall, that general field of machine learning. While Spacy is more focused on tools and functionalities for the field of natural language processing. So we're not going to replace scikit-learn. We're going to use both of these packages. So in other words, there might be some functionalities that scikit-learn doesn't provide for us. We'll go ahead and use Spacy. So let's explore some of these capabilities, these functionalities Spacy provides for us. We're going to first load Spacy, so we're going to import Spacy. And then what we're going to do here is load the text processing pipeline. So we're going to use the load function. We're going to pass the argument en. And en just stands for English, so we're going to load the English language model. Spacy does provide support for other languages. Just keep in mind that since English is more pervasive throughout the world, there's going to be greater support for English, but there are support for other languages, so you should consider that. If you look at the Spacy website, there'll be instructions on how do you install those additional language models. For your account, we only have the English model, but keep in mind you can go ahead and install additional models as well for other languages. Now what I said here is we're going to load the text processing pipeline. When I say pipeline, I don't mean exactly like pipelines in scikit-learn, but the general idea of pipelines. This function here, if we pass it a string, a string of text, it's going to perform a set of operations, so a set of analysis on this string, sort of very similar to like a pipeline. So yes, in general, the idea of pipelines, the concept of pipelines, but not specifically like in scikit-learn, so don't get confused about that. So when we pass a string to this NLP function, we get back a doc object. With that doc object, perhaps one of the things we want to do is iterate through all the sentences in this document. And yes, we could have written out our own Python function to do that, to split the string, but we need to consider cases like whether it ends in a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. Let's go ahead and just use Spacy's functionality. So in this doc object, there is a sense attribute which will return a generator I can use to iterate through all the sentences in my document. So that's what I'm going to do here in this for loop. I'm going to iterate through all the sentences in my document and print them out, so we can go ahead and inspect it. With that document object, we can also index values. So if we're concerned about what is the word at position 0, we would give it integer index value of 0. If we wanted to know what word is in position 6, we would pass it position 6. Alright, let's run this block of code here. Let's see the analysis. So sure enough, when we loop through, we look at the sentences. We obviously, there's 3 sentences in this document. We print out all those 3 sentences. We index these individual words through the bracket notation. Very similar like we would do with lists or tuples. Let's talk about additional functionality that Spacy provides for us. So Spacy provides parts of speech tagging. In other words, we can identify whether a word is a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. So in this document object, we can look at all the words in it, all the tokens in it. In these token objects, we can look at the attributes for those tokens. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go ahead and pass a string called the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. And I decided to put another sentence in there. This is a famous sentence that people like to use. And I believe the reason why people like to use this sentence is because it's going ahead and use all the characters in the English alphabet. So we're going to generate our doc object. So it's going to process this string here. We're going to create a set called tags because we're going to look at all the tags for our words. So there's a position, there is a parts of speech tag for our words, and there's also a tag as well. And tag can be a more specific parts of speech. The part of speech tag, the POS, is going to tell you whether it's a noun, an adjective, or an adverb, but maybe we're more concerned about, well, what type of noun, what type of adjective, what type of verb, things like that. So we can look at these tags here. So these are more fine-grained, a more specific part of speech. So if it has a tag value of CD, it stands for a cardinal number. If it's something like ARB, it's an adverb specifically. So we'll go ahead and examine both the parts of speech and this tag for our words. We can iterate through our doc object. If we iterate through our doc object, it's going to iterate through all the words in the document. So that's what we're going to do there. And then for each word, we're going to look at this tag attribute and add it to this set tag. So we're adding all the tags. And notice we're using set because we only want the unique value. So this is an example where using a data structure like set will come in handy. And we're also going to print out the text of the word. So there's an attribute called text, which will return the text of the word, the part of speech, and the more specific part of speech tag for the word. Let's go ahead and once we've done that, let's go ahead and iterate through all the tags in my tag set. And Spacy has a nice function called explain, which will go ahead and explain some of these tags. So these are the abbreviations I'm going to use for those tags. So they're not obvious what they mean. You can use this website to see what they mean, or you can use Spacy's functionality of explain. So let's run this here to analyze the results. So notice it looked at the first word in our document, which was the. So the part of speech is a DET. And we can go ahead and refer to that. DT just stands for a determiner. So you see quick, it's an adjective. Specifically it's a JJ. JJ stands for just an adjective. You can see what's going on here. Let's see a more specific example. Look, Mr. Mr. was a pronoun and it was an NNNP. So it's a proper noun singular. So more specific answer. Like I said, these things are a bit cryptic. You'd have to use this website to decipher them. Or you can use the explain function, which we do there. It will tell us what those means. So IN stands for a conjunction. Specifically in this case, a subordinating or a preposition. So yeah, so we can go ahead and you can see now where Spacy might be useful. We can use Spacy to take a set of text and break it down into sentences. We can examine those sentences and look at the parts of speech of our words. So we playing around with Spacy. We'll see some additional functionality when the time comes for Spacy. But the main point I want to say here is that Spacy is a powerful Python package. Feel free to explore the website to see some additional functionality. And it's not going to replace scikit-learn. It's more specific for natural language processing, so we're going to rely on those tools and capabilities and functionalities that we can go ahead and augment our machine learning workflow.